I'm Eric Newton, and this is The Together Show. We all know relationships take work, but what is that work, and how do we do it? As a former divorce lawyer, I've watched thousands of couples break up firsthand. Having seen the worst in relationships, I decided to try to help couples stay together. So on this show, we talk to real couples and find out what love really looks like.
We can't go to bed at night. We refuse, or we try to refuse to go to bed with that kind of tension. And so now we've got 2 nights of this stuff, and we're like, we have to get help.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for listening. We're creating a radio program based on our podcast. We're looking for questions from listeners about relationships. If you have a question or if you'd like some advice about your relationship, give us a call and leave us a message at 415-483-5112. We'll get right back to you, and hopefully we can include you on our show. Once again, that number is 415-483-5112. Now on to the show. Today's episode is about the intersection of conflict and faith. This is part 2 of our interview with Angus and Samantha Nelson. If you haven't listened to part 1, you should probably go back and do that because it'll give you some more context for what we're discussing today. We're dropping in on the interview just as Angus and Samantha are describing a challenge that they faced. It was rooted in their deepest fears about relationships. The process by which these two resolve this conflict is instructive, but what's more impactful is what powered that process, and that, in their view, is faith. Now, we haven't had very many couples on our show talking about faith or religion, so it was a real pleasure to hear from these two, and I found their views both accessible and inspiring, and I hope you'll find them to be the same. And in other news, which is somewhat related, I published an article on the magazine side of the site this week. It's called The Divorce Lawyer's Guide to Marriage Part 1. It's the first in a 4-part series about the lessons that I learned about how to make relationships work, ironically, from being a divorce lawyer. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. You can find the article on our website, www.together.guide, or on our Facebook page. So with that, let's go to our interview with Angus and Samantha Nelson.
So the thing we went to counseling for this past time, couple months ago, was kind of, it rocked those boundaries. It kind of tested those boundaries. He's in Aruba and he's traveling by himself. Like, it's like everything we talked about, we didn't stick to, basically. And so that was where I think it started. The element of not feeling safe.
So was the photo outside boundaries?
It is now. In the moment, I didn't think about it, and that was my bad.
So, and I think too that it's important to say that nobody ever goes out one morning and says, "I'm going to trash my life today. I'm going to sleep with that girl today because that's just how I feel like doing that."
Yeah.
It happens subtly. You keep making these movements in your lines of what's okay, and and those things happen when you're not thinking about it. When you're drunk because you're partying and everybody's celebrating, and something happens and you slip and you do. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I think it's wise to be aware.
Mm-hmm. This sounds really accurate and true. I mean, that is how we slip as humans into behavior that we don't approve of,
right,
in retrospect. It also sounds like what was going on in your head when you were becoming inordinately, well, I don't know if it was inordinate, but when you were becoming very angry. I can imagine you seeing that photo and then thinking that thought that you just articulated, like, this is how things start to slip. Maybe he didn't cheat with this girl, but this is how things start to slip. And then you started to think of all the other little issues that were just not working for you. Oh, that one time that he said hello to that person at the bar or whatever. They all start to pop up, and then you're angry, and then he comes home to a context of anger.
Sure. I think the other thing that played into that too is that we had talked about this. So this was kind of one of those things where it was like an ongoing, like the past couple of times that he traveled or that he had gone out, we had talked about, like, it was like, hey, I feel like I don't know, there was another picture or something. Like, it looks like you're having a really great time, but it also looks like you've got your arms around everybody, and I'm not really comfortable with that. And then he'd be like, oh, wow, okay, I didn't realize that. I'm not going to do that. Like, I get where you're coming from. And then he'd do it again. Yeah. So this was like, we talk about it, we come to an agreement of what we both need. He goes out and does it again. So Aruba, I feel like, was a compilation of, like, I'm frustrated now because we've talked about it and we've addressed it, and it's not changing.
And it got to that point where anger was the way to cause him to see it. Well, what was it? What happened when he came home? Were you angry?
Yeah.
So I have a phrase that I call, like, when I walk into the room and I know something's not right, I feel the static in the air.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, there's no expression of face or action physically, but I walked into static. Like,
right when you got home?
Something's not right.
Yeah.
And I didn't know at the moment, And, in hindsight, like, I was speaking, I was the MC, and, it's like everybody's like, you did such a great job, you're awesome, blah, 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 blah.
And ego gets pumped up.
Yeah, totally.
And you're just having fun, and you're just showing appreciation. For me, I'm a touchy-feely ENFP, Myers-Briggs. Like, I'm the people guy, right?
Yeah.
And we sit on a couch. It's two guys. Me, I've got my arm up here. This girl jumps down right beside me, and she throws her arm around me, and she's kind of got her legs crossed. And now, looking back at it, I'm like, that picture looks like she's hanging all over me. And it was just this moment where if I now look at it, like, why didn't I just have the character say, hey, can you just jump on the other side right now? Because I just talked to a guy
Who
this
posted
week.
the photo?
One of the guys.
Oh, so it wasn't you.
No.
You didn't get this photo.
I don't think I did. I don't think I did.
Remember.
I think it was just tagged in
It's so not about the photo. Do you know
no,
what I mean?
I get that it's
Right.
not, but that was the straw.
Yeah.
Right? That broke the camel's back. So it's interesting to know how it was.
And can I share too, like, and this is what I think, and I'm just psychoanalyzing here, from my wife, the element of, and we've talked about this, because when we first started our relationship, I was still on the mend, for lack of better terms. Like, she loved me through my stuff.
And you were sharing
junk.
with her all of your dark secrets, weren't you?
Yeah, of course, all that. But in my transformation, like, she was there loving me and making me feel safe and providing an environment for me to feel confident to dive into my own depths of stuff. Now, after being married, several years, I feel like she's felt safe enough that she's given herself permission over the last, and we've talked about this, the last 2 years, to start diving into, like, she's been reading Brene Brown and books and titles that make me feel like, oh my gosh, that is so deep. I don't even know how I could read that. And she has herself personally quested to deal with some of her mistrust and some of these other issues. And I'm watching my wife before me changing, transforming, growing, and now she's got what's the 5 and Wine with their lady friends where they get together and they have these very transparent and authentic conversations with other women.
Yeah.
And I think in that process of transformation, it also opens up other sensitivities, and the timing of these two coming together really helped. Again, what was the word you used for the flammable? It was combustion, because now all of a sudden my propensities, her propensities in that moment obviously created a lot of rift.
Your propensities and her sensitivities.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that, but it also could sound like an excuse.
I'm not saying excuse. I'm saying,
Did
like,
it land that way for you at all when he said that, Samantha?
An excuse how?
Like, well, I did do a bad thing, but it wasn't quite that bad because she was really sensitive at that moment.
Sure. I mean, sure. Or or you might be interpreting it wrong because I'm just a people person.
Yeah.
I'm just super friendly. That's just who I am. I mean, that's where we started.
And can you see how that would create now? And that only infuriated her more.
Yeah, of course, because you weren't giving credibility or credence to her concerns.
Yep.
Validity to her.
Yeah.
Her perspective.
Which is how Bruce gets the phone call, because now.
So okay, yeah. So Bruce
Yeah.
gets a phone call. How long did it take before you guys realized? Oh man, we got to call Bruce.
Like, 2 days.
Okay,
Not
so
long.
I mean, so we're
2
great.
days of
in this-
static.
yeah, I mean, like we can't handle static for very long. That's the good thing about us.
There's
is,
white
like,
noise all over. Yeah.
You know, we both are like, oh, this is like killing us. We're angry and we don't.
And we can't go to bed at night. Like like we tried to refuse to go to bed with that kind of tension.
Yeah.
And so now we've got 2 nights of this stuff, and we're like, we have to get help.
Yeah.
So Bruce comes in and he helps you. So what happened?
Well, he had to get his cape dry cleaned first. Between me.
Super Bruce.
Go ahead.
What happened, Bruce?
So we had a 2-hour drive to go to where Bruce was.
I think the benefit of a third party is that he gets to just validate what you're saying, and he gets to repeat what you're saying,
Yeah,
and
it's
you
huge.
get to hear what you're saying coming out of somebody else. And he asked me questions like, has Angus cheated on you? Has he done anything to give you any sense that, that's what he wants to do, or that's what he's looking for? So he helped me to say how much of my fear is things that are based in fact that I'm seeing him do, or how much of that fear is me going to those places where I'm just afraid that that's inevitable and that's going to happen.
Okay.
So that was helpful for me to gauge on a meter how likely it was in reality versus how likely it is in my head.
Which is valuable, but there's got to be a flip side to the process.
And the flip side, obviously, what would
So-
you say he did for you?
Well, like he asked me a great question. He said, Angus, on a scale of 10, how likely are you to cheat on your wife right now? Which I think is just an awesome question. And I'm like, 1, 2, like low. And when we walked away from that conversation, I'm like, yeah, no, like 1, like no. It is, again, until we can become self-aware and honest with ourselves, which most of us are not, to have a third person come in and ask those tough questions or call you on your BS. He challenged me and said, do you love this woman? And do you want to protect her? And gives all those reminders.
He also was like, here's what I do when when I'm taking pictures with someone, just so that doesn't affect my wife. I would never put my hand around her waist. My hands are always on her. He gave him like practical things that he could do.
Yeah.
Okay. What I can see that he provided a lot of value in was giving you guys both some perspective, so that you could step out of
The emotion.
and that critter brain, amygdala brain processing where you're in fear and reaction to fear, and then they're cascading. That sounds really valuable. And
Bruce's phone number is
on the other hand, what I'm curious about is touching back on what you said a minute ago, where when Angus says that he's just a people person, or it was, he'd just come off the stage and of course everybody loved him, that's still kind of not giving validity to your needs. And I don't hear that you guys talked about that with Bruce, but I do hear that it's not an issue anymore for you, Samantha. So I'm wondering what shifted so that you could relax and not be triggered by his saying those things.
I mean, I think it will always be an issue. I don't think that it's reality to say it's done. Yay. We don't ever have to worry about that again.
Yeah.
We went to Bruce and it's perfect. it's an ongoing thing. And how I feel not triggered is that I see him making decisions that help me feel safe. So, for example, he traveled to Munich a couple weeks ago, and he was looking for an Airbnb, and he goes, I chose this Airbnb because out of 5, I chose this one because the other 4 were all single ladies who were the hosts. And so I didn't feel like that was a good idea. And just by him doing that, that was like, oh, I feel like he's aware and he's looking out for that kind of stuff. Okay, that makes me feel safe.
Yeah.
Like he's intentional. I can kind of relax. I can trust that he's looking out for that. So, I mean, I think it's in those little decisions. That's how great marriages are formed, in all of those little decisions to make your spouse feel loved. You somehow, at the end of 80 years, discover you've got this great marriage, but it's all in those little decisions.
And your willingness to allow them to matter.
Mm-hmm.
And you've mentioned a couple times 2 things. One is that you've got multiple children, one who's 21 and 2 who are younger. So I'm curious about that structure and dynamic. And the other thing that you've hinted at is Christianity in your lives. And I would love to know how Christianity plays into your marriage. So which one of those 2 is more interesting to the 2 of you to talk about?
I think more interesting. Okay, we can speak to the kid one easy. We can cover both. So Sydney is our 21-year-old, and that was she was a child of Sammy's practice marriage.
Okay.
Before coming into our marriage.
And so she was, let me do the math, 11 when you met her?
She was 9.
She was 9 when we met, and 11 or 12 when we got married.
11 probably.
Wow. So did you become her quote unquote father or second father figure?
Yeah. So I wasn't I didn't adopt her. That was just an ongoing earning the right to be called daddy. Like she put me through the gauntlet. And at 21, I think she's still putting me through the gauntlet. But I'm definitely daddy. I definitely earned that role. And there was, the sad part of it is because I've become so intentional with my marriage, I'm also super intentional with our 2 youngest. I didn't have that opportunity with her. So I don't have some of the connections with her that I'd have with the 2 that are between us.
Yeah.
Ever since Scarlett and Duncan are our 2 youngest, ever since they, were cognitively, aware, when I put them to bed, I say, I love you, I'm proud of you, I believe in you. And for my daughter, I tell her, you're beautiful, tell daddy why. And she has this little rote, response of, because I'm smart, because I'm generous, because I share, etc. And it's all about internal beauty. And that's my intentional realm of creating inside of her the understanding that she's whole and that she's loved and that she's not alone. Or Duncan, after I get done with those same 3 questions, his 4th bonus question is, I read in John Elder's book, Wild at Heart, when I first went through my divorce, my counselor gave me that book and I just devoured it. And he said, every man wrestles with it. And I think women wrestle too, but men specifically for sure. Do I have what it takes? And I tell Duncan, you have what it takes. Now tell me why.
Right? I'm getting emotional just thinking about it.
And so Duncan has become fearless. That little guy, he just believes. And he hasn't grown very fast. He's still a little guy. But when he gets out on the ice playing hockey with the big guys, he just, he doesn't stop. He just goes right in. He believes he has what it takes. And
thank you for doing that.
So,
on behalf of all the sons out there.
Right?
And
I mean, and that's another tool, right? I believe, when I'm rich and famous and have my millions, I'm going to start a nonprofit. I just want to call it the first 5. Every family, when you have kids, the first 5 years of their life, I was reading Brian Tracy's book, Smart, his newest book. I interviewed him on my podcast, and in reading the book, he said that most adult situations are compensation for whatever happened before the age of 6.
Amen to that.
And we are compensating for that. We are coping with those either damaging, conflicting, whatever issues. And so I think if families would just prioritize those first, 5 years, like what a difference it would make in the persona or the ego of a child. And I mean the healthy ego of a child.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the children part of it.
And so let's turn to faith in that case. I'm fascinated by something that I hear from couples who are Christian often is of statements, something along the lines of God is a part of our relationship, or Christ is a part of or faith is the third wheel of our relationship. Is that something that, I haven't heard you say that, but is that something that the two of you believe?
Yeah, absolutely.
How does that operate? Can you give me a breakdown?
It's the mystery. Like, faith is a mystery. When you start to try and put words to it and try and figure it out, I think you don't really have an understanding of what faith is. Because it ultimately is, the mystery of it for me is that there are times when I am so angry I can't think straight, or I'm so tired that I don't want to care anymore. And it's in those moments that I feel strengthened, or I can still feel a connection of love. And I don't think I'd be able to do those things. I don't think I'd be able to push my love that far unless I had God, And I feel like also when things are chaotic, as they get sometimes in relationships, and the issues are swirling around, and sometimes you can't even identify clearly what the issue is. For me, the true north is always my faith. And because I can kind of hang on to that when things get crazy, it helps bring clarity.
What's really interesting to me about that is that the work that you were describing when we were talking about the issue you two just recently confronted all sounded like the work that everybody confronts, the work that everybody does, whether they're religious or not,
Sure.
when they're going through a process with their partner. And if you're really willing to be vulnerable and honest with yourself and put that out on the table, that's the work.
Yeah.
And but you have this extra component of it. How does faith play into that work that you were already doing?
So I think there's, again, I believe so much of life is based in paradox, right? So it's all about me, I said before, but I also think, if you want to have friends, you first have to show yourself friendly. If you want to get, you first have to give. If you want to live, there are parts of you that first have to die. In a marriage, we don't recognize nobody teaches us those parts. Young ladies grow up looking at the magazines and have the dreams of the princess castles and marriage. I'm going to get my prince and we're going to ride off into the sunset. What a bunch of hooey, right? Yeah. At the end of the day, faith is this aspect that for us personally, we grew up in, and I'm going to make a distinction between faith and religion.
Yeah.
We grew up under a religious construct in much of our faith journey. So my life was about perfection and performance. And when my life didn't line up to that, what do I do? And I learned through all that pain and the process of growing that it isn't about any of that. The whole reason why Jesus was put into our place was because we cannot be perfect and we cannot perform right.
Yeah. It's so true. We cannot.
Then you look at that in a marriage. Yeah. And now, in light of the grace that's been given to me, I get to echo that and reflect that on the people around me.
Yeah.
And now I no longer come to my wife with these expectations, obligations that she has to be perfect and meet my needs or anything else. It is a matter of me coming to her and allowing her to be fully her and loving her just as she is. And I release Sammy to be Sammy.
That's genius. Yeah, because there is no perfection possible.
Yeah. And if she would just do what I say and...
Everything
So
would be
ridiculous,
great.
right? It'd be marvelous. Like, it's just not possible. It's not. And plus, she
But
grew up
that's
as a Haitian. Like, she's never going to listen to me.
But
Like, well,
that's
it's
true
ridiculous.
anyway, what you
Yeah.
just said, regardless of God or not God.
True. But I think there's a propensity of a faith aspect that takes you to a deeper level than just cognitive reasoning.
Because there's a greater truth holding you.
There's a humility that comes when you see that the world and everything about it is not about you. Back to that paradox. And yet the love, the empowerment, the elements of God are all about you.
That's the paradox.
That's the paradox. And when you echo that in all of the realms of your heart and life, all of a sudden you can live a place of presence, gratitude, humility. And that is joy, satisfaction, and fulfillment. And now I'm not requiring her to do something to please me, to validate me, or create my own value. I find that within myself, helping me to be the best person I can, which as a result enables me to serve her even more fully.
And it's all sourced by the paradox, which is, on one hand, you don't matter. And in fact, most of what you experience is fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, through the mystery of faith and the presence of God, it is in fact all about you,
Yep.
both simultaneously. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you both for being on the show.
Thank you.
Now, I like to end shows with a quick game of this or that.
Okay.
Do you know how this or that works?
No.
Like, would
Choose
you
this
rather
or
be
that.
Yes.
burned
Oh,
by hot
gotcha.
coals or drowned?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
We played that in Chicago already.
Perfect.
Good.
Oh, you did? Why?
Yes,
Because the
our-
kids.
yes, our oldest said, "Would you rather lick the floor of the train
Mm-hmm.
or lick an alleyway?"
Perfect opener.
Okay.
So, what's the answer, Sam, first?
I chose alley
Mm-hmm.
because I think that the floor of the train has pee on it.
Do you get to choose? And the alley doesn't?
And I said the opposite. I said I think there's far more pee in the alley.
Here's
what
what
I
I
said.
said. I think
That's
that
what I
the
said.
sun bakes a lot of stuff and eats away at the bacteria. A lot more than the train.
And I think at some point in time they've got to mop the train.
Nobody mops
you know what?
the train.
She's thinking Hawaii alleys. Those like pristine, clean. She's not thinking Chicago
Right,
alleys
right.
where the sun hasn't seen them in
all
over 100
shadows.
years.
It's a green fungi mold. Something. Ugh.
All right, this is really good. What's another one from your kids?
That was the one we just
Oh,
We were
yeah.
sitting in line to eat dinner, and that was the one they came up with.
Okay. I'm going to imagine another one that a
Okay.
kid would come up. Would you rather be burned by hot coals or drown?
I just said that. Now you're gonna throw it. At me.
I know. I'm riffing off the kids. Oh, wait. We got to have you answer first this time.
Well, if I watched Titanic, I'm gonna say I'd rather drown because he looked so peaceful going down. It's like he just went to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
No.
Hot coals, and you're feeling your flesh burn and
Yeah.
sizzle before you actually are out. No thanks.
Oh, I don't know. Coals.
Cole, you're just going random. You're just going random.
They
on
both
this one.
seem pretty horrific.
Do you
to
know?
me.
I've heard that. I mean, who knows if this is true? I don't know if you can actually test this. That drowning is quite peaceful. Once you inhale, apparently it's okay.
That's what all the people who drown thought. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, let's go to. I've got 3 old chestnuts that I use in a lot of these shows. We'll end with those. Samantha, Batman or Superman?
Superman.
Superman. Okay. All right. Why?
Batman seems kind of dark. Superman seems like the traditional superhero.
Okay.
I would say Superman was beyond human. Batman at the end of the day is still Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. And so your choice?
That's Superman.
Superman.
He's got
Both of you guys.
superpowers.
So noble.
Batman has gadgets. Superman has power.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm with you. And second to last question. If would you rather have $1 billion or enlightenment? Oh, wait, Sam's first. No, wait, you answered first. Yep, back to Angus.
Well, I've seen what happened to, if we go back to the faith perspective, Solomon didn't make the best of choices with all of that money he had. Enlightenment, because I think actually enlightenment brings prosperity, not necessarily monetarily, but universally. So I'm all about enlightenment.
Yeah.
$1 billion.
If he's enlightened, you might as well be rich. There's your prosperity, Angus.
$1 billion, I can go pay for a yogi.
I mean, I figure you'll get enlightenment somewhere along the way. But
Well, there you go.
You're enlightened when you die?
I would choose enlightenment, then she'd be beating me up the whole time. Why didn't you just say the $1 billion?
I'll do $1 billion, and you can teach me about enlightenment.
Sold. Okay, and then last question. If you had to either die in the next 5 minutes or live for infinity, which would it be?
Live for infinity. That seems like an easy one.
Yeah. I would
For you
say-
too?
Yeah.
I don't think that one's so easy, I have to say. I mean,
Because you're thinking about everybody would be dying that
you're
you
going to
knew,
live
is
past
that
the
what-
heat death of the universe. If it's infinity, the sun's going to go away. You're going to be in the vacuum of space, just floating there,
See, I mean, I feel like
frozen.
there's a lot of good things that are on the horizon. So I just feel like, I don't know.
I would say that too.
There's
Because
kind of
it's all about your worldview and your perspective, and like all the intention we've played into our life and everything. I think we can help make the world a bigger and better place. When you watch movies and there's like, who are the guys with the swords? Highlander, and these guys have lived like forever, centuries, and some of them become jaded and angry and whatever. Like I think you could definitely go that way, or you can use the knowledge and the wisdom that you're gaining to teach new generations along the way and keep building upon shoulders upon shoulders upon shoulders, and you could be, doing amazing things.
Well, your guys' life perspective is clear from your answers to these questions. That was probably all we needed for the show to know about you two. Thanks for being on the show. You guys are such a blast.
Thanks.
It's really great to get to know you.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for our interview with Angus and Samantha, folks. Thanks for listening. Angus is an executive coach, as you may know, and he speaks and writes extensively about self-awareness in business. And he also hosts a podcast called Up in Your Business, which is both a fantastic name and a great podcast. You can learn more about him at his website, www.angusnelson.com. That's ANGUSNELSON.com. Don't forget to give us a call and leave us a message with any relationship questions you might have. Our phone number is 415-483-5112. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to include you on the show, so don't be shy. If you liked what you heard on the show today, please subscribe to us on iTunes. It makes a big difference when you do that. Please also consider donating to our Patreon campaign. You can find that at patreon.com/together. If you have any questions or comments, or if you'd like to be on the show, please reach out to us via one of our platforms. Our website is www.together.guide. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/togethershow. Twitter and Instagram are both @together_show, or you can email me at host@together.guide. And once again, our phone number, 415-483-5112. Our producer is Charlene Goto. Our web designer is Courtney Munna. Our art director and my one and only is Aubrey Pick. She's on her way to Europe for a month, folks. I'm going to miss her, but that's a career. Thanks once again to my guests, Angus and Samantha. You guys, it's time for you to come visit the West Coast next time. And I think I know when that's going to happen. That's all for today, folks. See you next time.